Welcome to Phil's Sewing Machines. I'm Annette, and today's project is going to be doing an applique on a kitchen towel. This particular font came from a computer. It's easy to do, and I'll show you how. Let's get started.
I'm using the letter E as my applique pattern. This particular font is built into my computer. I'm using an Apple computer, and this font is called the Subway. You may have something similar on your computer. I like this font because it has a wide body to it. It also has nice, smooth curves. This will make it a little easier to applique around, especially for the first time. If you're working with a design that has a specific orientation, or like with this one, it's a font, you need to print the pattern in reverse. You can do this in your printer setup on your computer. Flip horizontally or reverse printing. We'll be using Heat and Bond Light. It comes in a package that is 17 inches by 1¼ yards. This is a double-sided adhesive that's permanent. I find it easier just to cut a piece of Heat and Bond that's at least 1/4 inch larger than your pattern that you're tracing. The Heat and Bond has paper on one side, and the other side, if you can see, has like a shiny sheen to it. That side will go down facing your pattern. I like to use a couple pieces of painter's tape to hold the Heat and Bond in place while I'm tracing. I like to use a mechanical pencil. This works very well to trace the pattern onto the Heat and Bond. It gives a nice crisp line. You can use a regular pencil if you choose. That works just fine. However, you do not want to use any type of heat erasable marking pen, as we will be ironing this onto our fabric. This is a very solid dark pattern, so it's really easy to see through the Heat and Bond. However, sometimes you may have lighter patterns, so if you have a light box, that will work great. Another option is to tape your pattern piece to a window, and you can easily see through that way as well. Another option is to use the So Steady Clear acrylic table. There are different versions of these. They come in different sizes, and these are really nice to have. They are custom cut to fit your machine. If you're interested in one of these, just give Larry a call at Phil's Sewing. If the table has a drawer, you would want to remove that to give you more viewing area. And then you can add any type of battery-operated light that stays cool, and that is essential. This light needs to stay cool. You do not want to put anything hot underneath there. This is just like a closet light that you would add to your closet. It has a push button. You turn it on and just put it directly under your pattern, and it really gives a nice viewing area now. And now you can finish tracing the design, and it's really a nice, comfortable working area. Just finish tracing the designs. I'm going around all the curves and then finish up the straight lines with a straight edge. And one little tip, before you remove the Heat and Bond from the pattern, turn off the light. This will show the lines if you've missed anywhere that you were tracing. It's easier to see with the light off. So turn the light back on and finish it up. There it is. We have the pattern complete. It is now ready to be attached to the fabric. If you wish to trim it closer around the pattern design, you may do so, but leave at least 1/4 inch all the way around the design. The final trimming will be done after it's attached to the fabric. If you have an inkjet printer, there is a product called Barely There. It does require an inkjet printer, and you can print directly onto it. It's a fusible web. I'll use the Panasonic cordless iron to attach the Heat and Bond. I'll set my iron to medium heat, and I've removed the water reservoir as we will not be using any steam. We'll attach the pattern to the back side of the fabric, so you want to remember to flip that piece of fabric over so the bottom side of the fabric is facing up. Then place the pattern piece on top of the fabric And then we just place the iron onto there for about 2 seconds. You don't want to go too long, and another 2 seconds for the other portion. Give it a minute, and then you can check to make sure that the pattern is adhered to the fabric. You can check the pattern around the edges to make sure that it's adhered. If there are any loose spots, you can place the iron back on for a second or two. These are the Karen K. Buckley multi-purpose scissors. These work great for cutting applique. They have a stainless steel blade, and they work well for paper or fabric. They also come with a plastic cover to protect the scissors while storing. They also work great for cutting plastic template, and they are left-handed or right-handed, either way. Now we'll just trim the pattern right on that line that we drew on there earlier. If your applique design has straight areas, an 18mm rotary cutter will work also. Now we just about have it finished. It's almost done. There we go. Now we have the design cut out and we're ready for the next step. I plan to attach the applique to this red and black check towel. The one thing you want to make sure on the towel, if it has a loop, that's at the top of your towel. I've folded the towel in half to find the center, and then I'll just place a pin. Since this is a plaid towel, the stripe will kind of be my guideline there, but I will place a pin at the bottom edge of the towel. The pin that I am using is called a magic pin. It has a very comfortable grip at the top. It's also heat resistant, so you can iron over it. The package of pins comes in a nice storage case too, so they're always handy for you. You can use the pin to score the paper on the back, and then just kind of flip it over. Then it makes it easy to peel off of there. The method I prefer is to use the ever-so-in tweezer. I use the pointy one. They come in a package of 3. There's a curved, a blunt, and then this pointy one. But it allows me to grab the edge of the paper and be able to peel it up easily. And then completely remove the paper from the applique piece and lay the applique piece onto the fabric. For placement, my pin marks the center of the towel, so I can just kind of line it up for the placement. You can just do it visually, or if you like to be more accurate, you can certainly measure it. Using a ruler, I centered it over the vertical line and spaced it so that the E was evenly distanced to each side. When you're satisfied with the placement of your applique, we're ready to press it in place. This time we'll press it with 6 seconds. Do the first section and then the second section. Always follow the instructions on the package of the product that you are using. Let it cool just a little bit, and then you can check the edges to make sure that it has adhered on all sides. If there's any loose spots, just give it another press for just a couple seconds. I've added 4 pins around the perimeter of the applique, and this is just to mark the area so that I can add some stabilizer. I'm going to be doing a heavy satin stitch, so when we do that type of work, we want to be sure to use some type of stabilizer under the back of the fabric. I put the pins through on the top, so I'll be able to locate where I need to place the stabilizer on the back. Now we'll flip the towel to the back, and then we can see the pins, and this is right where I need to place that stabilizer. To attach the stabilizer to the towel, I'll use KK 2000. It's a temporary adhesive spray, and I'll spray that onto the stabilizer. I'll do that in an area away from my machine, usually in a wastebasket or a box. Now we can just place it where it needs to go on the back of the towel. Now the towel has been prepared, and the next step would be to stitch the letter to the towel. Before we get started actually stitching the towel, I wanted to show you how to set up your machine. If you have a mechanical machine, similar to this Pfaff Smarter 140, you will adjust the stitch length with a knob. This is the Ever-So-In Spiral 20. This is the machine I'm going to use to stitch the towel. It is a computerized machine, so it has some features to make this process a little easier. These are two of the feet that come with the FAF Smarter 140. This is your basic sewing foot. You normally use this for straight and zigzag. This is called the decorative foot, and it's made a little bit different. Let me show you the back side of these feet. The back side of a presser foot is called the sole, and on the back of the straight zigzag is very flat. Now let's take a look at the decorative foot. You can see it has like a channel on the back, and this channel allows the buildup of stitches to escape from under the foot as you're sewing. Without that channel on the back of the foot, the stitches would build up, causing a jam, not allowing the fabric to feed. So if I'm doing a zigzag stitch and I lower my feed length below 1, I will switch to the decorative foot. I have my machine threaded with isocord thread on the top and in the bobbin. I have prepared a piece of fabric that's cotton with a heavyweight tearaway on the back. This is so I can practice the stitch before I go to stitch on the towel. I'll set my zigzag width to kind of a medium stitch width is number 3, and then my stitch length I put about on number 1. With starting at 1, I know that stitch will be a little bit more open than what I'm looking for, but we can always lower that. And I selected the zigzag stitch on the machine. As I begin to sew, I'm going to slowly lower the stitch length until I get the desired look. You can certainly stitch the applique down with an open zigzag if you wish. I'm looking for more of a satin type zigzag, so I'm going to stitch a little bit more here and we'll check it out. When you end your stitch, you want to complete it by making sure the take-up is in the up position. Then you can lift your presser foot and easily remove your fabric from your machine. You don't get that thread tangle. There, that's what I was looking for. It's a nice filled in satin stitch. If this is the first time you're doing applique, you may want to practice. I attached a square to a piece of fabric with the backing on the back. And just lower your presser foot. When I start the zigzag stitch, I want the stroke of the needle on the right side of the zigzag to go into the background fabric just outside that applique piece. I'm marking it here so that you can visually see it. Of course, you don't need to mark it when you stitch. Now we can begin to stitch. And whoops, it looks like my needle's going on the left stroke. So we need to advance that. And to do that, I'm going to get a hold of the threads here and hold both threads. And then turn your hand wheel and only turn it towards you. Do not turn it backwards. Turn it towards you. And then now the needle is set to strike on the right side. And that's where we want to start. Now we'll line it up again so that the needle is going to strike just outside on that applique fabric. And then we'll stitch to the corner. And I'll show you how to turn a corner. As you come to the corner, you want to get about a stitch past the end of the fabric so you're right off the edge there. And sometimes at the end you may want to just turn that by hand just to make sure where you're at precisely. To get a nice point on that square, turn the applique about a 45 there and give it just a couple stitches. 2 or 3 stitches should be fine. And then continue to pivot. Now I'll just resume stitching. We can stop here and we'll check our corner to see how we did. Since this is a mechanical machine, I want to be sure to complete the stitch by raising not only the needle out of the fabric, make sure the take-up is at the up position. There. That looks like a nice corner. That'll be fine. Now we'll switch to the Eversewing Sparrow 20. We'll start with showing you the feet that are available. The foot on the left is a decorative foot, and that is included with the machine. The foot on the right is an open-toe foot, which is an optional foot for this machine. The wide opening of this foot allows for easy visibility while you're appliquing, and both feet have the channel under the sole of the foot. To select the zigzag stitch on the Sparrow 20, it has an easy selection button right there, or you can select it from the list of designs that are built into the machine. And the stitch list is really handy right there and easy to see. To select the stitch width, I just touch the mode button, and then I can raise or lower it with the plus or minus button. For whatever reason, the camera was not able to pick up the LED display on the machine. It actually has a very nice readout. I selected a medium width of 3.5. To adjust the stitch length, select the mode button, and then you can toggle it with the plus and minus button. I selected 1.0. Now we'll begin to stitch and test it. At 1.0, it has a gap in the stitches. I want my stitches closer together, so I use the toggle switch and just press the minus key, and it decreases it by 0.1 of each push. I've selected 0.4, and that seems perfect. That's the nice thing about a computerized machine. If I write that number down, I can always return to it easily. Now, that's what I was looking for. That's perfect. Another shape to practice is a crescent, and the reason for the crescent is you have an inside curve and an outside curve. To draw the crescent, simply use a mug, a plate, anything circular will work. I put some red dots along the outside on the background fabric. That's a good visual to see that that is on the right side is where you're going to pivot. I have my machine ready. I have the needle so that it will start on the right side of the satin stitch into the background fabric. My needle is stopping in the up position. I can use the needle up down button and select it to stop needle down. This makes it very easy when you want to pivot. When stitching around an outside curve like this, you want to pivot in the background fabric with the swing of the needle to the right of the satin stitch. The reason it's so important to stop on the right side when you're doing the outside curve is that it prevents having gaps in your stitches. I'll continue stitching like this and show you the end result. And we'll take a look, and here we have a nice smooth curved line with the satin stitches nice and even. Now we'll do the inside curve. I will begin again with my needle in the right going into the background. Then I know for sure that I've covered the applique. But when I pivot this time, as you can see, I made the red marks on the applique fabric. The pivoting will be done on the left side of the satin stitch in the applique fabric. I'll speed this up a little and show you the end result. Let's take a look now. Nice, smooth, even stitches. Now we're ready to try it out on a towel. Basically, we'll just be repeating what we practiced earlier. The needle will enter the background fabric on the right side. Now we'll continue to stitch straight, and I will speed up the process as we go. Going to fast forward through some of this and try to focus more on the highlights, the areas that need a little more detail. This is an outside curve, so we always want to stop with the needle to the right side and pivot with our needle in the background fabric. And we'll continue to do this going around a few stitches and then pivot again. This will keep those stitches nice and even. Just slow down a little bit and take your time, and it'll be just fine. The area that I'm approaching right now is a little bit tricky because that's an inside curve and then it turns directly into an outside curve. So you'll start with stopping on the applique fabric, but as it rotates around, you'll switch and then stop and pivot in the background fabric. When you're guiding the towel through, you want to make sure that you let the machine do the feeding. You're just guiding it. You don't want to push or pull on it. Now we're approaching a corner, so we want to pivot with that needle in the applique fabric in the left position. So put the needle down and now we'll pivot the towel. That's our outside corner. So we're only just going to pivot to like a 45 and we're going to take a couple stitches. We'll put the needle down and we'll complete the pivot. Also, when you're turning the towel, you want to make sure that it has not flipped underneath your work. Keep it so it's nice and flat. And we'll just continue to stitch and finish this applique. As we approach the final end here, we need to tie off our stitch. And with the Ever Sewing Sparrow, I have an instant tie-off button that gave it 3 stitches. If your machine does not have a tie-off button, you can press the reverse button and do a back tack. A back tack is stitching backwards a few stitches and then forwards, anchoring the stitches. There, we're almost done. There's just one last step, and that's to remove the tearaway stabilizer. This is a tearaway stabilizer, so gently get the edge of the stabilizer and tear it away from the stitches. Being gentle, you kind of can support the stitches with your finger as you're pulling it away. It's very easy to remove, and on the inside, just score it with a pin or a small scissors or tweezers works just fine. And now we have a nice monogram towel to decorate our kitchen or to give as a gift.
I hope you have enjoyed today's video. Working with applique is a lot of fun. There's many methods to doing applique, and there's also tips and tricks, so we'll revisit applique again. I wanted to show you the most basic way of doing it so you could get started creating today. Also, working with fonts, you have a lot available right on your computer. This one is called the Georgia font, and it has more of a narrow look to it, and it wasn't hard to do. It did have more turns, and it had a few inside curves, but just take your time, you'll do fine. These are single letter fonts, but by all means you could do a 3-letter font, and that's what's nice about working with them on your computer. You can resize them to fit whatever project you're working on. Just remember, when you print, to print in reverse. Flip it horizontally. If you need any of the products, the towels, or anything that was shown in the video today, click the link in the description. That'll take you to our website, or give us a call. We can ship it or you can pick it up at the store, whichever you prefer. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting Phil Sewing, and have a great day.